All right, we will go ahead and get started. My name is Tegan Habercorn, and I am a marketing manager here at Ironman. We are joined today by life sport coach Dan Smith for our Conquer the Course Ironman 70.3 Boise webinar. Dan will be going through all things Boise, just so you are as prepared as possible for race day. So just a little bit about Dan before we get started. Dan Smith is an Ironman U certified triathlon coach with over 20 years coaching experience. He has supported and guided athletes to achieve their goals at the local, national, and international level, including Ironman and 70.3 World Championships. Dan is an age group winner at both Ironman and 70.3 distances, and he has competed at World Championships in both distances as well as Xterra. Complementing his extensive sport experience is his technical knowledge, especially in cycling, an industry he worked in for several years. Dan is life sports technical equipment expert and is at the leading edge of bicycle industry knowledge for power, bike fit, and aerodynamics. And we are super excited and lucky to have you here today. Without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Dan.
Thanks, Tegan. Pleasure to be here today and share my knowledge here. And just as I was saying before we got on here, I attended 70.3 Boise back in 2008. I even have sort of an original copy of the when they used to give out sort of printed programs. So I'm happy to share all my thoughts on Boise. Having been there once before. And
yes, you have.
Yeah. So now I'll share my screen here. Is that what we want to do?
Yes.
Okay. We all good now?
Can you put it in presentation mode?
There we go.
Perfect. You're all set. We can see it.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, yes, as Tegan said, I do have 20 years of coaching experience, and I also do lead local triathlon swim groups and run clubs. So I do have a lot of experience. This is me actually talking at 70.3 Victoria a few years ago, but I pretty much go every year to 70.3 Victoria and share my insights race day on that race site. So you've decided to go to Boise, Idaho for a race. It's a beautiful venue. It's what they consider high desert, so it's at 2,700 feet or 800 meters of elevation. Not really going to affect your power output too much, or your run pace, but it is at a little bit higher, and it's what they call it, a desert, so it's going to be fairly dry air, apart from what you'll see next to the river where the green belt is. It says, I just did a little bit of quick research. City of Trees says there's supposed to be over 100,000 trees in downtown Boise. It's a pretty fast growing city. I was back there in 2008, and then I took a trip there 2 years ago, and the changes were incredible. It's a much bigger and more vibrant city now. The lake the reservoir is sort of fairly calm. The bike course is flat to rolling and a beautiful tree-lined run. And besides the triathlon's going to be there in July, there's all kinds of other activities that people do in Boise. So it's a pretty active city. Pretty much you can fly straight into Boise Airport. I think that's what we did the last time I raced there. Driving, there's sort of other places. Salt Lake City is 5 hours away, and Portland's even further. And if you're coming from Canada, like Vancouver, it's almost 600 miles away. So it's a pretty solid drive for some cities. With the sort of the growth of Boise, there are a ton of hotel rooms. If you haven't booked your hotel rooms, or if you're looking for an Airbnb, I didn't even check to see what there is for Airbnb, but there are tons of hotel rooms in downtown Boise, which are all fairly close to the race site. You might want to also check the accommodation page on 70.3 Boise website. Race morning, some of the hotels, select hotels downtown, are offering really early morning bananas and coffee and orange juice and all that kind of stuff. So if you if you want some services or amenities early morning, race morning, check that website and it'll give you some idea of which hotels are going to offer that. And then sort of in the week leading up to the race, there's a lot of choice of restaurants, craft breweries, all this sort of stuff. And there's a lot of arts. I was down there, I think, when the last year for 70.3 Worlds in Salt Lake City, I dropped by Boise, and there's some really cool things downtown. So it's a pretty interesting city to apart from the race itself. Um, but we'll get to the race. That's what you're on this webinar here for. So remember, it's Saturday, July 25th, not Sunday, July 26th. So Saturday, it's a Saturday race. We're a little bit different, which means Friday check-in. So make sure you've got your travel schedule set and you don't sort of arrive last minute Friday, because there's a set sort of time that you can pick up your registration and check your bike and everything like that. So remember, Saturday, not Sunday. This webinar, I'm going to talk mostly about the logistics, not about how to race a 70.3. 70.3 Boise does have some logistical challenges, but by coming on this webinar, you're going to get a sense of how the race day and the race weekend will unfold, and it'll give you some things to think about and to make sure you sort of look after. So I'll give you sort of pre-race in the lead up to it, the actual race day, and then I'll break down the swim, the bike, and the run, and give you some ideas for that. All right, the race site. I mentioned that it's 2 transitions. So the Ironman Village and T2, which is where you're going to rack your bike and start the run, that's in Julia Davis Park. And later on in the presentation, I'll give you a map of everything. T1 is where you're going to do, or the first transition, and where the swim is the Lucky Peak Reservoir. So it's outside of the city, and this is a view down from Lucky Peak Reservoir Dam, sort of looking back towards the the city of Boise. So you're going to be actually riding back down that valley, and it's pretty spectacular. You're going to get a different sort of different views and different scenery as you go through your ride and your run. You just got these massive cliffs and viewpoints overhanging the road, so that's pretty cool. There is a shuttle from the Ironman Expo, the main race site, to Lucky Peak. But I would definitely suggest, and not suggest, you should read your athlete guide. We're about 6 weeks out from 70.3 Boise. Things can change, but reading the athlete guide, there's a lot of stuff that's specific to this race in particular. So it's a good idea to go through that guide and kind of go through how each one of the steps are gonna proceed. So the race site or the sort of the main base of the race is Julia Davis Park, which is in this blue area here. That's where T2 is going to be. That's where the Ironman Expo is going to be. That's where you're going to pick up your race package. That's where all sort of the center of the operations is going to be. And this is the Boise River kind of rolls right through, or flows right through the middle of the town of Boise, and this race site is just to the north of the river. So there's not a lot of parking right at the race site, so keep that in mind but everything is fairly close together. There's a little bit of parking here that's basically for the people that are volunteering and sort of helping run the whole race series or the whole race event itself. There's a bit to the east, which is sort of over here, but it's very limited. And this whole Julia Davis Drive, which is sort of just to the north of this park, is closed on Saturday and was going to be closed for all the event. So no parking right there. This is where the shuttle goes from to take you out to to the race start. But in terms of parking, there's a lot this sort of in downtown Boise, right here where this red is. Is some free parking and also paid parking in this area, sort of up here. This is and then over to the I guess it's to the west is Ann Morrison Park. There is some free parking over there, and then there's also just to the south of across the river from race site, and it's about a mile and a bit here. Just let me um, is about a mile from race site. There's paid parking below the race site here. So if this is sort of one of the benefits of coming in a little bit early, like at least giving yourself a day so that you don't just show up sort of late Friday and expecting to sort of be able to rush. That puts a lot of pressure on yourself to find a place to park and a place to see how the whole race venue lays out. It's nice to be able to sort of be able to see it like this, but actually being on the ground, seeing how all the roads flow and all the directions and everything, and all how close restaurants and hotels are. It's a good way to kind of, if you can get in a day or so earlier than that, it helps relieve some of the stress from that. Try, okay. So, sorry, I had to jump ahead here. Friday is your athlete check-in. So use your, I think I have my schedule here for Boise. Ironman Village opens at 1 p.m. So you have Friday morning, or sorry, that's actually Thursday, 2 days before. Athlete check-in on Thursday, and there also is athlete check-in on Friday from 9 a.m. and till 4 p.m. And so check your event schedule for all this. So the athlete check-in and T2, which is the bike to run, is at Julie Davis Park. T1 and the bike drop-off is at Lucky Peak Reservoir. The Lucky Peak Reservoir is about 12 miles from the Ironman Village. So you can drive out there, but there also will be shuttles available to take you out there. They are fairly limited and they go on. This is just on Thursday, and you should check that with I have just the schedule. I don't have all the exact details of when all the shuttles will be available. So check that with race site. But you have a mandatory drop off from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock at Lucky Peak Reservoir on the Friday. There is limited parking on top of the dam, so you have to. That's where the T1 is, and that's where transition. Yeah, where you rack your bike. There's also parking available at Sandy Point Park, which is the sort of basically when I showed you that picture looking down from the dam, below the dam. So you can park below the dam, and then you have to either ride or walk your bike up to the top of the dam to put your bike in transition. So that's a bit of a hike, but be prepared for that. This is what they call a 7.3 Boise is going to have what's called a clean transition, which means that you don't set your bike up and in one place and leave towels and put all your stuff underneath it. Everything has to go in gear bags, and you're going to get a white gear bag, a blue gear bag, and a red gear bag. Your white gear bag is for your morning clothes, so you'll take that with you race morning to T1, the transition one, and before you jump in the swim, that's where you put all your clothes. I'll get to that a little bit later, and then there's a blue bag in T1, which is drop off, which is all your bike stuff, which is going to be your helmet, your shoes, your nutrition, your sunglasses. Everything goes in that bag, and it stays underneath your bike. And then for the run, there's a bike to run gear bag, which is going to have your running shoes, your visor, your hat, your number belt, and then your nutrition for the run. And I'll explain how all that works as we get through each of the transitions. So when you go on Saturday or Friday, take your bike out to Lucky Peak Reservoir, spend time to learn, and then as you're when you're picking up all your stuff at race site, learn the flow of how it works for coming out of the swim to get to your bike, and then from when you're coming off your bike to going to the run. Like really take some time to just see how all that goes. You can just walk through on your definitely on the we'll get to that when we get to the transition explanation of all the different transitions. But really take time to learn that and lay out all your gear in your hotel room or your Airbnb or your house if you're living in Boise, and just see what's going to go in your bike to gear bag and what's going to go in your run to gear bike to run bag. I believe your shoes aren't going to be clipped into the bike, so that your bike shoes need to be, and I think we'll get to that as we get a little bit longer into this seminar here. A couple things, sort of really important things, because of all the logistics involved, and there may be some last minute changes. You definitely want to attend an athlete briefing. And there are athlete briefings on Thursday. Looks like 3 on Friday, and then that's it. So the athlete briefing is in Julie Davis Park, and it really gives you a chance to sit down, and the race announcer will go through everything about the flow of the race, and it is the latest information you'll have. So I may not have the latest information as I'm giving you this seminar. So this will give you the opportunity to hear whatever the latest news is on the course. And also, there's always a chance after the briefing to ask questions from the announcer about it, that you may have about the course. And then this is something that really that has really stepped up the game for Ironman and anybody doing an Ironman, or for all the people supporting you during your Ironman. Install the as the especially the athlete should install the athlete tracker app on their phone. If Ironman needs to communicate with anybody regarding the race, like if there's going to be changes with the swim, or if there's going to be changes with anything, it always comes through the athlete tracker app. So it's super helpful for that. And over the years, they've improved how the tracker works for all the people that are supporting you in the race. They can follow you and whoever friends or whatever during the race, and it tells them exactly where you'll be, or approximately where you'll be at any given time. So it's really helpful for anybody that's supporting you in your Ironman journey to help cheer and support you during the event. So use have everybody use the athlete tracker app. It does work. All right. Just okay. So race morning. This is actually last year. I'm not sure if this is exactly how the race start is going to look like, or how the race finish. This is last year's, where it has. I don't like to sort of talk about things that have changed from last year's, but they have moved it so there is only one in and out of the swim. And I just flipped this photo. It's kind of going in that direction. So race morning, you want to really plan ahead, and sort of, I like to write it all down in sort of a timeline, because you have to give yourself time to kind of get everything together. So you've got to give your time to get from your hotel or your Airbnb to T2, that Julia Davis site. You've got to just put your, you'll have to make sure that you can get into your race bag to put your run nutrition in. And then you have to get on a shuttle to the race start. So race start is at 6:30, and Ironman is being very generous here at opening that transition two, which is going to be at that Julia Davis Park at 3:30. So that's when you have a chance to drop your run nutrition, and then you have to get on a shuttle. And I know a lot of people have get anxious or nervous about shuttles. I've done I don't know how many races that Ironman has put on with two transitions, and it seems like it's like they really know what they're doing with the buses and keeping the flow of everything. See, a lot of people, they have to get a lot of people to a completely separate, but it always works. And if you give yourself a little bit of time instead of rushing or kind of leaving it to the last minute, you'll get on the shuttle, you'll get out to the race site, and I like to get out there at least 45 minutes before the start, so you're not rushing around when you're there. But it's this one with a clean transition. There's not a lot of stuff you have to do in each one. Like you can split it up. So there's not a lot of stuff when you get to T1, this race site, to set up your bike. You're basically going to have to just make sure you've got your tires inflated, you put your nutrition hydration on it, put your bike computer on, and have your swim to bike bag. I believe it'll be underneath your bike, but you want to make sure that you check that. Uh, One thing, it's generally low 60s when you get to that early in the morning. So it might be fairly cool or chilly. Um, I've heard there may be a coffee truck that's there, so you can if you get out there really early, like at 4:30, and if you need some warm food or coffee, it'll be there. But because everything you're not coming back here and you're not going to be at this site ever again, you really want to limit how much you're bringing to the race site. So you try not to bring backpacks. You definitely don't need pumps. I just did 70.3 Victoria. I think it was 2 weeks ago, and there was pumps all the way around transition one, or the one transition, but there were probably 30 or 40 pumps around the race site. So it was super easy to get into transition, set up, find a pump to pump up your tires and go. So you don't need to bring your own pump. You don't need to bring backpacks full of all kinds of stuff, because you can sort of see right here on this sort of little white, all these white things, those are all morning clothes bags. So as you go to line up in the start corral here, you just drop your white morning clothes bag into one of those things and one of those bins, and Ironman will take it back to uh, T2 for you. Um, Line up and so once you've sort of set your bike up, you may go for a little sort of run warm up or just sort of arm swings. If there is a chance to get in the water, to get an open water swim, I always advise that. Like getting in the water, kind of getting used to it, feeling how the water feels, getting your suit aligned on your body, pulling up on the shoulders, pulling it up into your as much as you can on your chest, making that suit as comfortable as possible is good. But you'll have to uh, sort of check with organizers like on race weekend just how much time there is available for an in-water swim. But if you can get an in-water swim, it is super, super, super helpful. Okay. One of the things that the race organizer has suggested is when you're lining up for the swim start and you're standing on it's all asphalt, they're going to have a sock drop donation bin. So if you've got some old socks or some warm socks that you want to stand in, you will be able to wear those and then put them in a sock drop donation bin just as before you get into the water. So that's kind of a nice little thing if they want to sort of donate some socks afterwards. I've mentioned this one in previous webinars. A lot of people ask me, can you wear your heart rate strap underneath your wetsuit? Want to get wet or whatever? Yes, like that works fine. It just doesn't record unless you've got one of those Garmin sort of Bluetooth recording ones. And generally, these swims, the swim start is 3 or 4 athletes every 3 seconds. Everybody's lined up. You're in this corral right here, all the different swim caps, and they're seated by times, just like you'll see in some of the 10K races. So it'll be under 30 minutes, 30 to 35 minutes. There'll be little time sort of corrals. Be honest about your time, as it takes about 45 minutes to get in the water. But your time starts when you cross the start map. So um, if you get in a part of the corral in a faster than you swim spot, it's a good way that it generally causes you end up getting swam over by faster swimmers. So it's generally not as fun. It makes it a little bit more anxiety causing. So it's be really honest. Swim with the people that are the same speed as you, and you'll get a better experience with us with the swimming. Okay, quick little thing about the swim. The water is not crazy cold, 63, so that's actually pretty comfortable. You could probably wear a sleeveless wetsuit with that. Some people probably even show up with no wetsuit at all. But the water can be choppy. It's not as glass smooth as some of the, even if it's early in the morning at 6:30 in the morning, it's often I kind of went and looked at most of the comments were that it wasn't cold, but it was choppy. So you want to practice being able to if you can to be able to breathe in bilaterally, either one side or the other. And typically with there are small waves, it helps to keep your stroke rate a little bit higher so that you don't get sort of slowed down by every single wave that hits you. This course, I will say, if you did it previously, the swim entrance was over here. So now they've made the swim so it's the start and the finish of the swim is in one place, saves you from having to walk half a mile, three-quarters of a mile across the pavement to another part of the lake. I was asking why it's sort of a V shape, and the V shape is mostly to keep the sun from being straight in your eyes or straight to the side of you while you're swimming. So it makes the sighting of the buoys a lot easier when you've got this. But you will have to be a little bit aware. Generally, um, red the red buoys on each of the corners those are a turn buoy that you have to go around, and um, the race announcer will say what side you have to keep all the buoys when you're doing this. Um, it looks like yellow buoys on the way out, but I would be sort of wait for sort of when one of the race briefings to figure out which side the buoys are going to be on. I would probably wear, if it's going to be a brighter day, which it probably should be since there's very little rain in this area this time of year in July. You want tinted goggles, and I always suggest even if they're brand new goggles, give it a nice coating of an anti-fog in the morning of or the night before on your goggles. It definitely saves your goggles from getting fogged up, so it makes it a lot easier to sight. And basically, you're just going sighting from generally the buoys. Each one of these buoys is 100 meters apart, so you can kind of count your buoys. And as like how to approach it, the first 300 or 400 meters is a pretty solid hit. Really use that first 300 or 400 to get the heart rate going, get the arms warmed up, get yourself going, but then sort of dial it down from a 7 to a 6 out of 10 effort. And keep your head down, try to draft if you can. That's legal in the swim, and try to follow feet. It helps keep you focused. It generally helps keeping going on a straight line, and then sighting every 10 to 15 strokes, making sure you're going in a straight line. I know I always find that the turnaround feels like a long way, but then once you've got to the sort of this last turnaround, this second buoy or third buoy here, you're well past halfway, and just keep following the rules, keep your head down, keep your stroke rate up. If you're finding that your mind starts wandering and you feel like your stroke is kind of falling apart, you can count strokes, do 10, 15, or 20 strokes at a time, and you'll progress from one buoy to the next. The key is you're not going to go any faster than you're going, so making sure That you just keep that rhythm going right to the end. You'll make it. You'll get there when you get there. You can't get there any faster. Swim right till your hand hits the bottom. So you'll swim right to the swim finish right here. Okay. Swim exit. So swim exit. This is coming out of the water here. Just stand up when you're. I said I swim till one hand touches the bottom, and then I'll take one stroke more, and stand up when you're. You try not to stand up when you're waist deep because that means you're pushing through the water. So sort of halfway up your thighs from your knees to your thighs. Stand up. Just put your goggles on your head and don't do anything else. I don't even touch my goggles until my feet are on dry land. And then once you're on dry land, just put your goggles on your head. Don't do anything else with that stuff. Leave all your cap and your goggles on your head. Strip your wetsuit to your waist. Short run up to the bike, and as you're sort of swimming in the final little bit of the swim, visualize yourself removing your suit, putting on your helmet, doing all that kind of stuff as you're going through T1. Okay, so here's just this is something to say to visualize as you come when you check your bike. Really kind of going. It'll all be fenced off, so go through this and see how it all flows. So you're going to come out of the water, run up a ramp, and then they'll have a fence section. So you'll end up on the sort of east side of the transition, and you'll run through, and you'll all the racks are generally numbered by the number of like whatever your race number is. But have an idea, like am I 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 racks down, and am I on the right hand side or am I on the left hand side? Because all the bikes look the same. They're all generally black wheels with often have black handlebar tape and everything. So having a good idea how how it all flows and whether you have to pick up your bag first or if it's underneath your bike, the race direction will tell you that. Helmet goes on first, and then you put your glasses on, and then everything else, like your wetsuit and your swim cap, has to go back in that bag, and you leave it underneath your bike. So that, I think that was a blue bag. Everything goes back in that. So that means everything gets put back in a truck and then taken back to T2 while you're out riding the bike. So think of all this. So kind of take all this in when you're putting your bike on the rack and checking in on Friday. Okay, the bike. Now hopefully this is the part that you're really looking forward to. The mountain line, you'll run out. The mountain line's not too far away. Want to make sure your bike is in the right gear so that you can jump on your bike and start pedaling, clipping in okay, and not feel like you're in too easy a gear or too hard a gear. This is generally fairly crowded and hectic because you've got everybody who's been swimming, you've been horizontal for anywhere from 30 minutes to just over an hour. Suddenly you've stood up, you ran through transition, you jumped on your bike. Often it feels a little bit discombobulated. So I always just tell all my athletes, focus on doing one thing, and that's riding the bike and being smooth and being aware of what's going on around you. So I've seen some races where people come out of transition. On this transition, they've got like a gel in their mouth, or they've got a banana in their mouth, like a banana in their hand or something like that. That's really not ideal. What you want to do is it's getting on that bike, getting going. You're going to be starting on the top, like Lucky Peak Reservoir is tall. So you're going to be starting at the top of the reservoir, top of this dam, and then you're riding down into the valley. So it's fast at the beginning. You're riding fast downhill. So be aware of what's going on around you. Be aware of all the sort of other racers, and not worrying at first about eating or drinking. Like just use the first miles to get into that rhythm and be safe. And then after a couple miles, and once it's sort of spread out a little bit, then you can start having a drink and start getting your gels in and start getting your nutrition in. But really pay attention in that first 10, 15 minutes out of transition, just because that's where there's a lot of confusion and a lot of stuff going on. Okay, now we're going to go into the bike course here. Just a second. So over here. So this is the swim is way out to the right here. This is Lucky Peak Reservoir, T1, and then you roll down through the sort of the high, there's sort of rock cliffs and everything like that, and you ride back towards Boise. So the bike course is one large loop. It's yeah, I'm sure everybody's looked at the map and had a little bit of idea of it, what the map. One large loop. I was talking to the race director last week or earlier this week. It's a little bit different from a lot of other races. Everything is going to be on the bike. Everything is on the left. It's quite different. It's reverse of what we're used to riding in North America, or what riding and driving in North America. The oncoming traffic for it, the road will still be open to cars, but they're always going to be on the right of you. So you're going to be riding. Racers are going to be riding on the left-hand side of the road. It's going to be coned and all set up for that. There's one sort of area which I'll get into a little bit more detail coming up in another slide here. Two areas to be aware of. There's a no pass zone at about mile 6 in because of the traffic and because of the way the roads work. There's a small no pass zone at mile 6. I believe it's somewhere in this area here. And on the way back into town, once you've sort of done most of this bike, there's a left turn at South Federal Way. It's a pretty massive intersection, so you really have to be aware here. So just want to have your wits about you. So those are things to think about. And if you want to start matching some of these, if you look sort of down to the bottom here, I've got the finishing elevation. It's a total gain of 600 or 1,600 feet, which is like 500 meters. So I kind of put that in as more flat to rolling as opposed to rolling to hilly. It's not a huge amount of gain, and none of the hills are really particularly steep. So at 3 miles, sort of 5 miles here, I think it's like sort of right in here. It's actually only a 2 or 3% grade, so it's not crazy steep. It's more of just like a gradual up, and then you'll ride through East Gowan. You'll turn left on South Pleasant Valley, and then this little squiggle right here, that is this little at 15 miles. That's the sort of first major one. That's 4 or 5% for about a mile and a half. So this is sort of the really the one major sort of steep hill of the bike course. The road surface is pretty much, it's all sort of either mostly like sort of in town, and sort of the South Pleasant is good pavement, maybe have some cracks in it and stuff. And as you get further out, it's got a little bit of a chip seal in it here. And I'll show you I took some screenshots of Google Maps so that you'll get an idea of what the road surface is. From 15 miles to sort of 22 miles, which is this West Kuna Road, it's basically a false flat for like 6 miles all the way up to this. Sorry, it's like 1 to 2% grade. So this looks like it's a lot of elevation, but it's really it'll just feel like going out there feels like, oh, I'm kind of rolling into the wind a little bit. You turn around and start coming back, and then you've got like almost 20 kilometers, which is like 12 miles of down. So it'll be basically from this here all the way to the end of West Kuna Road, South Cole Road, and the end of West 10 Mile Creek Road is going to be just a slight downhill. So I'll feel like you have a bit of a tailwind all the way through there. And then we've kind of got this from mile 30 or mile 35 all the way up to sort of mile 42, which is 42 is kind of the top of this thing here. This hill, that's sort of the biggest hill in the whole course. And I believe that's where one of the aid stations is here on this hill. And then there's a couple of, they didn't have them on the map, so I can't point them out. But as a race weekend, you'll find out where they are. But I know there's definitely one right here at the top of this, or around this top of this hill here. And then we'll roll back down East Gowardin Road, and then the final turn, you turn left off of South Federal Way, and then you go back to transition two. I'll just give you, so I just took some screenshots of Google Map here. So the first bit, like coming off of Lucky Peak Reservoir, they'll have the Boise River on your left-hand side. You will be on this left-hand side of the road. And as I said, it'll be coned off, and it'll just be one-way traffic for bikes going here. And then you've got sort of down to once you've kind of, you'll leave the river. I think you take a bridge, go across the river, and then this Idaho 2021 3 miles. It's a gradual 2% grade up from the river to sort of the high point, sort of where the airport is and where sort of all the main part of the race course is. This is the intersection of note. I'll explain that a little bit more in the next slide here. So it's just going to be a busy intersection, and it'll all be coned off, but there'll probably be a lot of cones. So just want to make sure you've got an idea there. Pretty much all the roads, the rest of the roads I kind of went through Google Maps. They're all kind of like this, just single aid roads, and you'll be on the left-hand side here. This part here, going back to this section here, this Gower. So basically from mile 40 back to mile 50, it'll be two-way traffic for bikes on the left-hand side of the road going out. Once you're back to South Federal Way, so once you sort of turn left on this intersection here on the way back into town, it's going to be 2 lanes with often with a center churning lane in the middle. So you'll be over on the left-hand side. Then when you get to this last bridge here with these 2 little pylons, you're almost back to the race, the bike out or bike end. And here's a little bit more explanation of this intersection. And as I say, the race director or race announcer will go through this a little bit more in detail, so you can get a little bit more idea, but I'll give it yellow arrows are bike out. So this is coming over here. It's coming from Lucky Peak Reservoir. You're going to be the furthest to the left, going out. On your way back in, these purple is the bikes going back in. And when you're going back in, cars will be on. So on the way out, cars will be on your right. On the way back in, cars will be on your left. It'll be like normal. But when you get to this intersection, you won't be going into the farthest right lane. There actually will be cars coming towards you from this road, just only from this road. It's only I think it's about a mile or maybe less of cars being on the other side, going in the opposite direction to you. And then there'll be purple is cars, or purple is bikes, sorry. Green is cars. So there'll be cars coming towards you, cars going with you until you get past this East Lake Forest Drive, and then it'll just be you, the bikes on the far right of South Federal Way. So they'll just be aware of this, and if you have sort of questions towards the end, I can answer this, or the race director can answer this. So that's the bike. So the bike, again, it's mostly flat. There's some small gradual uphills. Get your calories in early on the bike. Get them early. I like to set my computer as a reminder every 10 minutes to be doing something, either eating, drinking, or having electrolytes. Be smooth and relaxed in the upper body. You're riding to power. If you're riding to power, you're looking at 75% to 85% of FTP heart rate or RP 6 out of 10. And this kind of came up in when I was doing the presentation for 70.3 Victoria with Brent. Just keeping even pressure on your pedals. Trying not to spike, and especially when you're going through corners, You're just trying to keep steady pressure and not accelerate out of corners and brake too hard to go into the corners. But with the sort of some of the two-way traffic, it may be a little bit more challenging. And you're trying to keep a comfortable cadence somewhere in that 80 to 90 RPM. All right, transition two. So you're gonna go over that bridge that the last bridge I showed you, and then you're gonna turn right into sort of that Julia Davis Park. You'll be directed there. Just check the bike end. So whether you're going to be able to get onto the green belt all the way to the end here, or find out where the dismount line is. As you're rolling into transition, sort of the final mile or two, shift to an easier gear. Get your legs spinning a little bit. Try to kind of simulate that cadence for when you're going to be running, bringing up that cadence. You've figured out where you've got to walk through this pre-race, so you know where your bike is or is going to go. They're all the racks are numbered by your bike number. So dismount, just steady and purposeful to the front corner of the transition, and then you'll run your bike to your bike spot. Don't rush. This is the part that I'm not 100% on, but I believe your run bags will be actually at a different place. They might be towards the end here, but you want to check to see whether the run bags are going to be underneath where your bike is or some all hanging up from rack. And that's where you'll take your helmet, put your helmet and your shoes in that, and then that's where you take your running shoes and your socks out, and your run and your sort of your hat and your number belt and your nutrition, and then run out onto the green belt right here. And it looks like you're going to be running past where bikers are going to be coming in. All right. Getting towards the end here, the run. It's 2 loops counterclockwise, and if you've done this race before, you'll notice that there's been a few slight changes. The big one used to be there was more of a spur at this end. Now it's much more. The run is much more even on both sides of the Boise River, and there's a small little spur here, but it's very short. So I was told that. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, this river is a pretty well-used river, and this green belt is sort of right in the heart of Boise, so it's a fairly busy. There's other users. There's going to be rafting and stuff going. I'm sure halfway through the run, a lot of people will be wanting to jump into the water because should be fairly warm. Most of the green belt is paved, so it's either pavement or it's concrete, and I love this course for doing 70.3s, 2 loops counterclockwise. So it means that each side of the loop is going to be 5K or 3 miles. So it's super easy to segment. So you just think of sort of running out of transition to the first bridge. You'll go across the bridge, and then you've got a nice steady run down the south side of the river, cross, and then back this side, then back. So dividing into 3-mile segments. I don't know, this first one is actually 1.5 miles, and then 3 miles, 1.5 miles, or 2 miles. And by segmenting in small pieces, it means you can kind of focus, what am I doing right now? I just have to sort of go, I'm only have to run to sort of this end of it, then I cross, and then you can reset and go to the next one. There is a bit of mixture of shade and exposed. I believe on the north side of the river, there's a few more trees, so it tends to be a bit more shaded, whereas on the south side is a bit more open, so a little bit less shade. This is July, remember, so temperatures on the run can get up to 95 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees Celsius. So prior to going into this, you want to make sure you're accustomed to sort of running in heat. You can do sauna protocol if you want, like making sure that sort of you spend some. If you can't get in heat, then you can just like a daily sitting in a sauna is a really good way to acclimatize to the heat. It's also because it's got a little bit of elevation. the sun can be really strong, so make sure you've planned to put some sunscreen on, or you've used things like arm coolers to kind of keep the sun off. And in terms of hat, like I would always wear a hat in this, and there seems to be, and some people wear those the ice pack things on their foreheads. That really helps in this. I kind of like the sun, or sorry, a hat, because it keeps the sun right off your head. And then hats also allow you to put ice in. I would tend to wear something. Look, I do some research into some of these sort of almost bucket-like hats that have little spots for ice, and they're also super, super breathable. That's what would be one of my tricks to what I would be running in. I like running in trucker hats at times, but I find they also often don't let the air flow through as easily or as quick as smoothly as I'd like. So something that allows you to keep your head cool, and if you can dump some water over it, put ice in it, that means you can stay cooler for longer. And when the temperatures crank up to say 92 or 90 plus to 95 degrees, you really have to adjust your pace. So if you feel like your heart rate's starting to climb, then you need to slow down, adjust your pace down, settle it down, and making sure you stay on that nutrition, hydration, electrolyte plan that you've had prior to this race. Prior to racing. So thinking So there are 6 aid stations, and like this guy is using is like he's dumping water, dumping ice over his. One of the tricks is to even have a like a Ziploc bag, and if you can get ice, you put ice in the Ziploc bag, stick it down the front of your shirt, or sort of down on your shoulders, or put it under your cap. There's going to be water, precision hydration, which is basically that's your electrolytes. There's no calories in that. Morton gels will be on course, and probably cola as well. And then there's obviously some non sort of sport specific stuff like fig bars, chips, pretzels, all that kind of stuff. But really, in this next sort of 6 weeks leading up to 70.3 Boise, really kind of work on your run plan, how you are going to get through the run when it gets hot. Because when it gets hot, that's really when people start to suffer and their plan falls apart. So thinking about how you're going to keep yourself cool, how you're going to keep yourself hydrated, how you are going to manage those temperatures. So slowing down is always one of the important ones. And big one is really just trying to keep your run horizon short. So whether it's running to the next aid station, and then thinking of things like the sort of posture and technique, running tall, using those arms. Arms always drive cadence. Um, Looking down, like keeping the head sort of not looking sort of at your feet, looking down the road where you're running. All that sort of stuff helps. You're keeping that cadence up. And the final bit, you're gonna sort of you have to go off the course, or sort of the 2 laps are sort of up and down on the around the river, and then you do have to sort of deke off, and you'll finish sort of in that Julia Davis Park. So visualize prior to the start of the whole race, visualize yourself running down that red carpet to the finish chute, and sort of can be there to congratulate yourself. And we'll just kind of just go back just to the map a little bit here. So you can see T1 or T2, sorry, is sort of right here. The finish is sort of round behind that. There's also numerous bridges across the river. I think this bridge right here is the bridge you're going to be using coming in on the bike. But if you've got supporters, you can use these bridges to get back and forth across and then maybe some smaller bridges as well to get back and forth across the river, so you can actually see whoever you're supporting multiple times during a lap. So if you've got friends and family who are racing, or who are will be there supporting you, say that you can get from one side to the other, because it lifts your spirits when, especially when it's hot and you're finding the heat sort of struggling to run through that. Seeing someone cheering you helps. And then there's pretty much every mile on the run course, there is an aid station where you're going to get either water, precision hydration, or the Morton gels. And so finishing strong and pat yourself on the back. Well done. And with that, we're sort of running right at 55, 56 minutes here. So that is my presentation, and would love to, if you've got any kind of questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I don't know if Tegan is ready to, or Jason is happy to answer any questions. I'll leave it back to Ironman.
Yeah, I just wanted to read the message in the chat from Jason about the bike course, just so we have all the correct info there.
Okay.
Our outbound no pass from miles 8 to mile 10.6, and then no pass inbound mile 40 from mile 46.1 to 48.7, and then no aero bars from miles 0.7 to 2, and we have penalty tents at miles 30 and 55.8. Aid stations are at mile 14.1, which is a left-hand grab. Aid station number 2 is at mile 31, which is a right-hand grab. And aid station number 3 is at 42.3, and that's a left-hand grab. And then if everyone looks in the chat, that has our traffic information. And then the only time athletes will ride on the right side of the road is from miles 29.9 to 34.1 and miles 49.8 to 56, just so you guys have all that bike course info. And then I have a couple questions for you, Dan.
Okay.
For athletes from warmer climates, do you have any advice for how to get ready for the cold water before the swim?
The cold water, the one, well, if you can get swimming in a wetsuit, that definitely helps. If you feel like 63 is not massively, if it is cold, maybe compared to your swimming, but it's not super cold. I did see pictures from last year, and there were people that double capped the swim, so 2 swim caps. And one thing I find that really helps us with early season swimming is to wear earplugs. It keeps the cold water um, out of your ears, which kind of can throw things off. Um, the big thing I know from if our early season swims, is the water may feel really cold for the first 3 minutes, but it's only 3 minutes. And then after 3 minutes, it's like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. But wearing a wetsuit really mitigates that cold water.
Perfect. Thank you. For our next question, are there any bike workouts that you would recommend to prepare for this course in the training time that we have left?
Specific ones. I guess with this course, the biggest thing is going to be like staying on, like, I mean, riding at your 70.3 pace, but riding in aero bars as much as possible, like being comfortable in aero bars. Like that's the biggest. I find that a lot of people, they do their rides but don't really practice time in that aero position, and it does put a lot more strain on your shoulders, like trying to support yourself. It also puts a sort of more of a strain on your lower back. So being comfortable in aero is key. Um, there are those long sections, like I think from mile, I see 28K, but it's probably from mile like 16 to 22, where you're kind of going gradual up, so maybe slightly lower cadence than you're used to. And then on the way back, it's going to be a little bit of a like 5 RPMs more than lower than you're used to for sort of those long gradual ups. And then on the way back, maybe 5 RPMs higher than you're used to. So extended periods at that.
All right, and I just have one more question for you. Do you have any comments on road surface or road quality for both the bike course and the run?
So looking at it, it's there. I did see, and I saw it reading comments from last year. Um, the road surface is generally good. If you can run with tires that are sort of between 26 and 28 millimeters wide, that definitely helps with comfort. And running with tires with like that sort of 80 to 90 or 90 psi, like lowering the pressure a little bit, that definitely helps with sort of the road. Um, when I went through all the pictures, the road conditions, but everybody's got different sort of expectations of roads. Um, it's like some people just hate chip seal, and there is some chip seal there, but I ride chip seal quite a bit in my rides, and it's just a surface that you've got to be comfortable with. But having a little bit wider tires, especially, and that's sort of the trend of all bikes nowadays, is the little bit wider, um, which gives you a little bit more volume, which definitely helps for comfort.
Perfect. I think that's all of our questions. We
Wow.
will post this recording onto our course page on the Ironman website. And I think that's all we have for today. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.